Good morning, everybody. This is Pastor Ray, Broadman Baptist Church, and this is the Broadman Word for March 13th, 2024. And today's title is Righteousness. And I wanted to talk to you about a couple of passages out of Romans chapter 10 and kind of unpack that just a little bit. In Romans, Paul writes, beginning in 10:1, it says, "Brothers and sisters, my heart's desire and prayer to God for the Israelites is that they may be saved. For I can testify about them that they are zealous for God, but their zeal is not based on knowledge, since they did not know the righteousness of God and sought to establish their own. They did not submit to God's righteousness. Christ is the culmination of the law, so that there may be righteousness for everyone who believes." So the Israelites were trying to live only by Moses' law and have a righteousness established by their own culture, their own rules, their own way of doing things, their own festivals. And these had long and steeped traditions in many, many things. And Jewish life was pretty legalistic. You had to be on it, or you could find yourself on the wrong end of a whole lot of ugly, particularly if the Pharisees found out about it. Paul writes to here though that they were still zealous for God, but it didn't come from knowledge of God. It came from what they thought, their thoughts, their ideas, their traditions, their sensibilities were what was ruling, and so they had subjected themselves to about 400 years of rules under judges, various judges, another 400 years under various kings. And so then Jesus comes along after the intertestamental period, which was about another 400 years. And of course, the time of all the prophets. And says, hey, you don't need to do that. This is me fulfilling the law, and you need to worship this way. This is what it's really all about. So the task was steep. He had to try to convince them that what they had been taught and what they thought they knew the entirety of their existence as a people, a very special people to God, was really just a little bit off. It wasn't the fervor and zeal that was the problem. It was that it was all man-made and self-taught and through church history, and not through an actual relationship based on the knowledge of God and a relationship with God. So there's a problem now. This Jesus guy comes along, says he's the Son of God. And of course, that created all kinds of upset in the Jewish community. Paul says here that it is his prayer for the Israelites to be saved because they are zealous for God. But then he goes on to say that they didn't submit to God's righteousness. That's where we need to be careful today. American society tells us that there is all kinds of choices for us, all kinds of gray areas, all kinds of self-determination, which is nice that we have those kind of freedoms, but they don't necessarily work well when you're trying to express and live out an absolute. You see, we have an absolute truth called the Bible, and it comes from an absolute supernatural creator God, and it has certain prescripts for us to live by, and addresses nearly every you might say all aspects of human life and how we should think and act and feel, and not out of some sort of blind subservience to a king, out of love, which was first shown to us through Jesus Christ. And so that is in verse 4 of Romans 10 what Paul gets back around to. He says, Christ is the culmination of the law, so that there may be righteousness for everyone who believes. So our righteousness is not of our own. It is through Jesus Christ, and we can have it. We can be righteous before God as long as we understand that it is through Jesus Christ and not anything that we did, and not of any of our own strength or abilities or accomplishments. And so today, then, we run into the same situation. I think most of the world has at least known about Jesus or heard about him. So we're not necessarily fighting that problem, but we are fighting the problem of self-determination and the lack of knowledge of who God is and what it means to be in a relationship with him. These are enormous obstacles because we're effectively doing the same thing that believers, Jesus and his followers back then had to do. We now have to convince people that their thoughts about life and the world and how people are and how to treat each other and generally how to go about having this thing we call life isn't correct, and it's not going to lead to the kind of peace and happiness, joy that they really want, and it's not going to afford them an eternity of peace. It's going to lead them to an eternity of damnation. Big concepts, big words. So we need to find ways to demonstrate righteousness through who we are and how we live, how we speak, because then we can start to example that it is different, better, and it does produce in an individual who determines to believe. It does bring them peace and joy that's not available from a worldly life. We have the ability to deal with many, many things with grace and peace and even joy, even in hard struggles, even if it's the last struggle, so to speak, because we have hope and we have faith in the promises of God, trust in God, which enables us to get through pretty much anything without the anxiety, stress, and general upset that the world would have to deal with it. So understand what we're trying to do here and understand how we go about it. It is the church's number one mission to teach people about Jesus Christ and what it means to be a child of God. And so that means that you're going to have to do it, and displaying your righteousness, not in a haughty or boastful manner, but displaying your righteousness in a very practical manner is one huge way that you can get folks to start wondering about this Christianity that you preach. So listen, brothers and sisters, I love you. Get out there and be righteous, be holy, be part of the royal priesthood, be an ambassador of the gospel. Let God's purposes flow through you. Love you. Take care. I'll see you next time.